Last weekend we had a visiting priest, Father Michael Jolies from Virginia. For those who were not here, I'll tell you that Father Michael is a priest of Richmond. He's about 50 years old, and he was blind from the age of 6. So at the age of 6, he had a brain tumor, and from that time on, he's not been able to see at all. Very talented man. You may remember that he played the piano for us, gave a mission for 3 nights, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I was pretty fascinated by him, actually, because being totally blind, I wondered, how did he function? How did he get around? He came down here on his own. He wasn't accompanied by anybody. Came into our home. We gave him kind of a tour, sort of a chance to get familiarized with where everything was. And he did remarkably well. You know, he was able to kind of find things and function in a great way. He said, "Don't think of me as being blind." And really it kind of said something about his own spirit. He was very social as well, especially over in the house. He, one evening after dinner, decided to have a little conversation with us. We were sitting around, Father Josh, Father Bowman, myself, and Father Michael, and he was talking a little bit about, not being able to see, but being able to kind of get a sense of people. And so he said something about each one of us, a little bit of the sense that he had of each of us. Now, mind you, he's blind, so everything that he got was from the discussion at the dinner table or kind of maybe the sound of our voices, etc. So what he said was about Father Josh. He said, well, I know he likes fishing, and I bet on his day off, he likes to go out into some swamp in Florida somewhere and not be found, only by the fish. I said, boy, this guy's pretty good. He kind of picked up a lot. Then he kind of acknowledged Father Bowman, and he said, Steve, I kind of get a sense from you that you're just cool, calm, and collected, that like nothing bothers you, that you're just very, very patient. And he is. I said even more. He really knows us. He's kind of gotten to know us in a short period of time, more than if he saw with the eyes. And then he acknowledged me and he said, and you, Stephen, he goes, I get a sense that you have perfect hair. Now, I have no idea how he kind of figured that one out, but he just said, I just kind of get that sense there's not a hair out of place. It's kind of like a helmet there on your head. His whole point in his talks was regarding the ability to see not only with the eyes, but to see with the heart. Maybe to sense a little bit more and something different in the insights that we have. Today, our gospel also gives us that opportunity to sense some of the insights that St. Joseph was asked to have. You see, he was seeing with the eyes. And when Joseph saw with the eyes, he saw a very messy situation. He saw his betrothed, Mary, who at that time, the whole process of marriage was a little different than what we think of today. So in that particular process of marriage, they were like in the second stage, kind of married, but it was formal. And so as a result, when Mary was found with child, he wasn't sure what to do. But the angel came to him. You see, this was the Annunciation to Joseph. A great word, Annunciation. And we always think of Annunciation, obviously the great event when Gabriel came to Mary. But the angel also announced to Joseph in a dream and a vision that he would be the caretaker, the protector of the Messiah. There's also another Annunciation that happens in the Scriptures, and that's next weekend. And that is what we read on Christmas Eve, when we hear the Annunciation to the shepherds. They were out in the field. It was announced to them that the Messiah was born. But in this dream that Joseph had, the angel said, don't be afraid, but see with the heart and embrace this gift of salvation that God is giving to us, to you, to all of your people. And so as a result, Joseph had to come to an acceptance, to a realization of being responsible, to a realization of being accountable, to a realization of trusting in the Lord. We don't know much about St. Joseph. Actually, in the Scriptures, there's no recorded words that St. Joseph ever said. He was a quiet man. I'd say he was a pretty smart man because he was quiet. But he also took that chance to be a faithful man. And so I think he realized that he had a part to play in this whole plan of God. And it was up to him to accept it, to receive it from the Almighty. And so he did what was asked of him, and he had great hope. And that hope was that God is with us as he would name his child. And that was the privilege of the family, the parents, the father, to name the child. And he did what he was asked. He was able to then come to an understanding that he was a caretaker, protector, that he was going to do what is called for in the book of Genesis, and that is to cultivate and care for. In the Garden of Eden, that's what Adam and Eve were asked to do. And he was a caretaker of faith as well. We should be very grateful to St. Joseph, because over these last 2,000 years, it's because of his yes and the yes of Mary and the visit of the shepherds and the birth of Christ that we continue to have the beautiful gift of faith. But we're also asked to be caretakers of it, not only personally, but also communally. We're asked to be caretakers of our faith personally because each one of us has an individual relationship with God. So whether you picture God as the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, all three combined in one, whether you find him in the gift of nature and the gift of other people, the scriptures, the real presence, we all have an image of God. We all have a relationship with God. We're all asked to encounter God in some way, individually. But we also do that as a community. And that's why we've been called together in this time and in this place to be a community, to be able to care for, cultivate, protect the gift of faith, pass it on to the next generation, and to be able to appreciate that as a community of Annunciation Catholic Church. Every week I stand outside by the doors, and people come out and they want to say hello, especially if they're visiting. And they'll say, Father, there's something very special here. It's my first time here. And I have to agree with them. And I'll say, well, why is it special? And they said, usually most people will tell me, well, I felt very welcomed here. It was a very beautiful Mass, beautiful liturgy. You know, that spirit of hospitality is a tribute to each one of you. That is a tribute that's beyond the priests and the sisters and the staff, but it's something that our congregation has to do, which is to be inviting, to be welcoming, to be hospitable. We'll hear about that in the scriptures also next week, the hospitality afforded to Mary and Joseph, because there was no room for them at the inn. They ended up at a stable. So we welcome people here to our home. I think that's something that we value. Something else that I would believe that we value here at Annunciation is the gift of formation. It is the gift of growing in our faith, whether it be from the preschool, where we take babies at 6 weeks old, to the school, to our high school youth programs, to our adult programming as well. The ability to learn, to grow in our faith, so that we're not stuck in second grade CCD. Because God expects us to continue to embrace the faith, to mature. We mature physically, we mature mentally, emotionally, we mature spiritually, or at least we should be. So that's something we can value here, because in our parish we have a lot of offerings for spirituality, a lot of offerings to pray, ways to come to know God even more, to love God, to serve God, to love and serve others. It's our mission. But there's also something else that I think we value here within our parish community, and that is the gift of our campus. You know, we've worked very hard over the last 30 plus years to build a campus that was special, to be a refuge for people. And during the day, many people, you may never see this, but they come in and out of the buildings, go over to the grotto, walk the grounds, and that's so that they can find God. Maybe get away from whatever is troubling or whatever is going on in the busyness of life and just find some quiet time. So we value our parish campus as something that a lot of investment has been put in over the years to make it and to maintain it as something special. I've spoken to you at some times when I've given the annual report in January, and more than once I've mentioned that there's some things, though, that we always have to look at, that we have to maintain, that we're called to care for and cultivate. And there's two buildings of particular concern that I just want to mention to you today and just speak about briefly so that we can fulfill our call from the Almighty. One of those is the church. You know, this church was built 15 years ago. It's hard to believe. A child that was born in 2001, 2002, now is well into high school. And so really we've seen the children grow up. Well, we grow up too. This is a building that thousands come through week after week. So there's a lot of wear and tear here, and we have to make sure that there's always a good home for the Lord. Of particular concern, though, has been the floor and the carpet. You know, it's gotten kind of worn over time. And so as a result, you know, we have to address that particular issue. It's been a concern with some of the cracking and chipping, etc., of the tiles. We've had some concerns about the lighting over time. You know, if you look up at the lights that we have here, I look up at them and I think, how do we ever change them? We try, we've made some efforts, but over time it becomes inefficient. There's also some systems in this building that you never see. There's things like air conditioning, heating, that you really wouldn't notice it wasn't working unless there was an emergency. And that's what we call preventive maintenance. The other building that we've looked at over time, that we've spoken about, and I've mentioned, is the Life Center. Life Center is over 30 years old also. It's never had a major renovation. We've had kind of a choice. We've talked about it as a group. I've collaborated with a few folks to speak of, well, you know, should we renovate the building, or would it be better to rebuild it, to relocate it in order to meet the needs of our parish now and into the future? Because some of the purposes for which it was built, we use it in a different way today. We're a little bit of a different parish. We've continued to mature over time. So we've looked at these two particular buildings, and getting a little bit more into the church earlier this year, kind of started really thinking about, well, what would it take to address the things that I've mentioned? To address the floor, the lighting, the air conditioning, other preventive items, and we realized it's a big project. You know, this building is used constantly. Today it's been going since 6:30 this morning. During the week there's mass, weddings, funerals, rehearsals, practices. There's a lot of things that happen in here that you may not even see if you come for just 1 hour a week. And so when we look at this particular building, we have to realize that it's kind of a challenge when we do work. It's not like you just bring in a ladder and put some paint on the wall and, oh, it's pretty easy, and then get ready for a funeral and then a wedding and this and that. It's not really possible to do that. So challenge is to operate while work is being done. The other thing that we've come to realize is that there's some opportunity. That part of the original vision for the building, we had to value engineer out because of costs, because of the funding that was available at that time. So we've kind of had to look at that and say, well, how do we move forward then in order to address the preventive and some of the other needs, and some of the other maintenance that would take place, and give us an opportunity perhaps to look at some new vision. So also, we then looked at the Life Center more seriously with the facilities team. We spoke about it, kind of said, well, renovate, rebuild. You know, we kind of have some issues here on our parish campus with parking. We have a building that, as I said, is over 30 years old. It has really been utilized for a lot of good over the years. But really, does it fit in with the overall use that we really would need it for as we go into the future, and could it meet those needs? So we've made a decision to relocate and rebuild the Life Center. I share this with you today in a spirit of transparency, in a spirit of just letting you know where we're at. Just kind of giving you a heads up, just like the angel came to Joseph, gave a little bit of a heads up, and said, I want to give you some sense of some vision, some things that are going to be going on, and it's not going to happen tomorrow, It's going to happen over a period of time of the next several years. So we set our expectations in that particular manner. And what we've been able to determine is that we can have a project that is 2 phases. Phase 1 is going to be addressing the church and this building. It's going to take place next year from July until December. It's a 5-month project. During that time, we'll be able to use the Life Center for our liturgical and our worship activities. Phase 2 is the relocation and rebuilding of the Life Center. There's a lot to be done with that because it's not something that we've been able to work on just yet. There's planning and design. We'll develop a mechanism for some input from you, especially those who use it the most, and also that we can kind of dream a little bit about perhaps what would be best for that building. As you know, it's located in the north side of the parking lot. The thought is that we could bring it a little bit closer to the church area without disturbing the green space too much in the back, preserving some of the oak trees, being able to do a multi-story building, gain some extra parking, have a connection with the church, so that there's activities that we would go from one building to the other, kind of being able to be most efficient for us. So that's kind of the vision, is 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. The planning and design will start this early next year. Probably by the spring, we should start having some conceptual ideas of what it could be. I would not anticipate any construction of a new Life Center until the latter part of 2018. Now you might ask, well, Father, how do you pay for all of this? It's a good question. Well, we're part of the Diocese of Orlando, so any project that we have, we finance through them. They make sure that we have solid financial footing as well. And part of that process is a capital campaign, which here at Annunciation is nothing new. It's been a while since we have had one. For those who've been here over the years, you've always been really generous. And so I thank you very much for that. I hope you'll continue that generosity. For those perhaps who are newer to our parish community or have never participated in a campaign, well, I do not want to deny you the privilege of being a part of it. We would look forward to that in the fall of next year. A campaign will introduce it, talk about it, have the right conceptual drawings as well. So there's some number of things that are happening here. Another part of the financing component is also there's good news. And the good news is that because of your generosity, because of some cutting of expenses we've been able to do over the last few years, we're going to be able to get started on phase 1. And so that's good news. And I thank you very, very much for that. I'll continue to give you some updates about where we're at. I'm not going to do this every week. I'll let you know a little bit later in January when I go over the annual report for this past year. We'll speak a little bit more about it, and I'll give you some more details. I'll keep you updated as time goes on. But today, I'm not asking you for anything except for one thing, and that is your prayers. I would ask for you to pray that through the intercession of St. Joseph, caretaker, protector, that we may be able to be the ones who pass on the faith in his spirit, that we do so in a fatherly type of way, and we look forward to the future for what promises are still yet to be had. You see, Joseph had great trust. And look at what happened. The child was born in a stable, hardly a romantic type of place. But Joseph realized that God is with us. And that's what I ask for each one of us to think about as well. To reflect that God is with us. It's what we'll celebrate next weekend as we celebrate Christmas. If you're traveling over the Christmas holidays, I hope you have a very blessed Christmas. I hope it's a great opportunity for you to enjoy some time with family, friends, and we'll look forward to your return. If you're here next weekend, we'll look forward to seeing you at our Masses. Please invite a friend, a family member, someone maybe that's estranged from the church. Reach out. It's a great time of year, an opportunity to say, come experience and encounter God, to be able to extend an invitation. We're also kind of a mother church in the area, a place where a lot of people come on the holidays. And they come here on the holidays because they find a home, but they may not be here every week of the year. So, a little warning. You may not get your parking spot. You may not get your coveted and treasured end seat at the pew. But what I would ask for you to do is to welcome the stranger, to take that great spirit of hospitality and extend it to another. Because we never know, our goodness to somebody, our act of kindness at the holiday, on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, may make someone come back. It may give them a desire to say, I think I'm going to go back to that church next week as well. So we put on our best, not only in our attire, but we put on our best inside too. This year too, we're kind of lucky, and that's that you get a 2-for-1. Christmas is on a Sunday. I almost feel guilty about that, actually, because as a priest, I don't know if I should feel guilty about it, but I'm just feeling kind of like, wow, I mean, it's going to be a great weekend, and Christmas and Sunday all packaged into one. So we'll look forward to celebrating the gift of Christmas as a family and as a parish. And when we put out the Christ child here, or you place Jesus in your own manger at home, I hope you'll look into his eyes. And I hope you'll look into the eyes of Jesus and realize that Jesus didn't just see with the eyes. Jesus felt with the heart. And he's looking at each one of us. And maybe wondering from us, how do we see all of the blessings and what he's given to us? How do we recognize his graces? You know, my friends, we don't always see them with the eyes. We don't always see them with the mind. But we do see them with the heart and with the soul. And through the intercession of St. Joseph, may we be able to be those good caretakers to ensure that the soul lives on far beyond this world, to take care of what has been entrusted to us today, that we can enjoy all that's been prepared for us tomorrow. And God welcomes us home and says, well done, my good and faithful servant. That is really the spirit of seeing, of being able to see into the future, gain that insight, have some vision, and look forward to what God has in store for each one of us.